Okay, and welcome to the inaugural live stream right here on Continue Freedom. This is the first time I've done a live stream with you guys. Normally, I'm sitting down recording this stuff in my house and then, doing a quick edit and throwing it out. But I'm going to get into the live stream game. I want to talk to you all. Make sure that if you're on here, hit me up in the comments. If you got anything you want me to talk about, if you got any questions about any of the stuff that we talk about, be sure to hit me up. You can also go to continuefreedom.com. You might want to sign up for my mailing list. That's just a way for me, one day YouTube's going to have me canceled, and so I want to be able to reach out to you guys in the future. So we are going to talk first off, Joe Biden, and I'm just going to get right into it. So, Joe Biden, oops, I got the wrong display up here. Let me fix this. These are the glitches that come with your very first live stream. Let's try that one. Here we go. Joe Biden denies proclaiming Easter Sunday Trans Visibility Day. I didn't do that. And of course, funny, post-millennial. If y'all have never read any of the post-millennial stuff, it's fantastic content. They do a great job. But he says, I didn't do that, Biden said, in response to a question about his signing of the proclamation designating Easter Sunday, March 31st, 2024, as Transgender Day of Visibility. This comes after backlash over the issuance of the designation, which angered Christians in the United States. He specifically said, I didn't do that. When he was asked about it, this came from Philip Mellon. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I'm not even going to try. Biden went on to accuse House Speaker Mike Johnson of essentially lying when the speaker called the president out over the proclamation, which overshadowed the White House response to Easter, the holiest day on the Christian calendar. Biden said Johnson was thoroughly uninformed. So I think we all know, Transgender Day of Visibility. That's something that's been going on for a long time. By the way, some internet sleuths out there have done a really good job of telling us how many different days there are and months. In fact, I think November is one of the months. There's several weeks, months, days out here, as if we didn't know that transgenderism, was a thing or not, which we all do, obviously. But putting it right on Easter, it's been at different days throughout the year. And this year, it's the fact that he made the proclamation. He made the proclamation coming from his office. Now, there's a couple of options here, I believe. One is he didn't know. One option is that he had absolutely no idea that this letter was sent out, that somebody else had drafted this letter, stamped it with his auto pen or used his stamp and sent it out, and he literally had no idea. But I think that the real problem here is the tone-deaf nature of the administration. The Biden administration is entirely tone-deaf. While he says that he goes to Mass, I don't know if it's daily or weekly or how often he actually goes, but nonetheless, the tone-deaf nature of the Biden administration is obvious and should be obvious to all of us. So putting out a proclamation like this is nothing that's surprising. It's definitely not surprising to me. And Speaker Mike Johnson, who we're going to actually talk about today, because we've got several topics to get into. One of them happens to be Mike Johnson. But nonetheless, he sent it out via his X account, and he said, therefore, he highlighted basically the part that Biden had said, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, I do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility. And this is a day where, those of us that are Christians, those of us who, it is our holiest day of the year. So if they're going to do this and they're going to say, oh, you're going to have your Transgender Day of Visibility, Transgender Awareness Month, transgender this, pansexual this day, that day, whatever it happens to be, fine, because we've got so many of these days, I think they're starting to lose their value to begin with. But that for lack of a better term, I would just say that is our day. Of all the days, Easter, when we celebrate the resurrection, the event that took place that sets the groundwork for the entire Bible, for the entire Christian faith, for all of our beliefs in our Creator and the forgiveness of our sins from Christ. Everything comes together at the nexus of Easter, and to then interject something in here that is, we can get into the spiritual warfare side of this, but I don't intend on hitting that. I think it was an absolutely abysmal move on his part, or at least on the part of the staffer who drafted the letter and auto-penned it or stamped it or whatever it was that they did. And White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the proclamation as well, saying that any backlash over the date of Transgender Day of Visibility overlapping with Easter Sunday was misinformation, because we know that Easter moves. It's a floating holiday, so it has to do with, there's a lot of celestial things involved in it. There's a lot of ways that it moves around. But either way, for the Christian faith, we know when it is. That's not a proclamation that needed to be made. Anyway, so surprised by the misinformation that's been out there around this. This is Karine Jean-Pierre, I believe. And I want to be very clear. Every year for the past several years, on March 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility is marked, she said. She noted that what everyone knows, which is that holidays that are on a specific date and around the same time of year as holidays that are designated differently may fall on the same day. I'm a little. I'll be honest. I'm a little tired of the days of visibility and the days of this and the weeks of this. We can have them. That's fine. But this one, I'm not going to beat a dead horse on this one. But it's absolutely abysmal, and it's at a time when evil inside of America is drastically on the rise. And I'm going to give you an example here. This is a Haitian illegal immigrant, and he's confessed to sexual abuse of a 10-year-old Florida girl. So here we are, and this is probably a terrible segue, but I'm bringing this up because when we look at our faith as Christians, and I'm not here to preach, that's not my thing, I'm not going to be preaching, but what I'm going to say is Christians are focused on that day because it's a day of redemption and of forgiveness, and it's a time for us to find solace in our faith and recognize what this whole life is about, right? And it's about service to God, and it's about service to Christ and all of those things. And so we are in a time when evil is flooding into our country. And, we have to, we can go every Sunday and all that stuff. But either way, this is the type of thing that is coming across our southern border. This is a terrible segue. Y'all are going to have to bear with me on this one. But this Haitian illegal immigrant confessed to sexual abuse of a 10-year-old Florida girl. On Saturday, a Haitian illegal immigrant appeared in bond court in Broward County, Florida, on accusations that he sexually abused a 10-year-old girl and took pictures of it on his cell phone. If there's ever a time where we need Christ and we need God, I think now would be the time because this is the type of stuff that we are dealing with, and I'm going to have a couple other examples of it. But according to a Pembroke Park police arrest report obtained by Local 10, police officers told 37-year-old Nivenson Sarazine, who has a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement hold, that they have video evidence of the abuse. He then confessed to the abuse, admitting that he lost control and that he pulled the victim's pants down and molested her on multiple occasions, adding, "I should have just asked for a lawyer." So he confessed, saying, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have said anything." Wow. Sarazin was arrested on Friday and is facing 5 counts of sexual assault on a victim under the age of 12, 5 counts of battery, contact with bodily fluids. I'm not going to, okay. Let me tell you what's going to happen with this guy. They detained him on bond, originally setting it at $540,000, which he's probably not going to come up with. But this is some, I worked with the guy, he was in the prison system. He talked about prison justice. And when people do this, the peace has to come to the family through the justice system. I believe people like this should be chemically castrated, if you want my honest opinion. But there will be prison justice for people who are abusing kids. And this guy is absolutely no exception, regardless of where he comes from. But this is the type of thing that we are trafficking across our southern border. And this, if people want to know, if you're a leftist person out there and you want to know why we get so amped up about the crisis at the southern border, this is why. It's because we, by saying that the congressional districts need to be drawn or redrawn, which is coming straight from one of the representatives out of New York, when they say that we need more of these people in here so that we can redraw the congressional districts, when we need more of these people in here because I believe they want to, pad their voter rolls in certain states, then, that is completely setting aside the security of the American people. That is the number one, the first priority of our federal government is to secure our borders and secure the people inside of our country. And when you open the borders and you let everybody in, la-di-da-di everybody, to come across and abuse children like this guy has, then that's also tone deaf, talking about tone deaf for the administration, but it's also tone deaf to the responsibilities of the federal government. It's not tone deaf. It's just negligent on the part of the federal government. And the widows and orphans argument is the one a lot of people on the left like to make. Some people on the right actually make that same argument. But this isn't about widows and orphans. You can watch the videos. I mean, I've dredged out on this channel doing my, my pre-recorded stuff. I've dredged out video after video after video of men at the southern border, military-aged males. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know who they are. We don't know their intentions. And yet we're allowing them to come across at the expense of the American people's security. I am fully for legal immigration. Legal immigration is just fine. I have zero problem with it. I think that the system, yes, needs to be fixed, but we can't completely ignore the security threat that's there. And we know that the people that are coming across, they're not coming from just South America. We've got people coming from North Africa. We've got people coming from the Middle East. We've got people coming from China. We've definitely seen Chinese nationals. We have people coming from India. We have them coming from all over the world, and they are being flown into Mexico. The infrastructure behind that, I'm still trying to research, but we know that a lot of this is going to be Soros-funded, operations, nonprofits, which is going to be part of another video, by the way. I'm going to be researching some of these nonprofits that are heavily, heavily funded, and there's one in particular that started at $400,000 worth of government grants. I'm reading here, Junior Coltrane, Biden has gone full-on Bud Light mode. Nobody likes okay, got it, yeah. Okay, anyway. So these nonprofits were going from $450,000 in government grants in 2019 all the way up to $72 million in 2022. And this is federal government being essentially, laundered into these nonprofit organizations in order to get the migrants across the border, get them into the different cities that they need them to juice their voter rolls and to redraw congressional districts. But anyway, we're going to cite a second example here. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, I just lost it. There it went. Here we go. Here's another one. A Guatemalan illegal immigrant with criminal history charged with child sex crimes in Massachusetts. An illegal immigrant has been arrested and is awaiting removal proceedings after being accused of multiple crimes in Massachusetts over the last 2 years, including sex crimes against minors, and he was previously released. So this is that whole catch and release thing. People say that this is, compassionate, or we're flooding the prisons with too many people, blah, blah, blah. If people are accused of any crime against a child, then those people need to be obviously arrested. Bail should not be an option. And again, if you've sexually abused a child, chemical castration is entirely on the table. But on Thursday, deportation officers from Enforcement and Removal Operations, ERO, Boston, apprehended the unidentified 33-year-old Guatemalan national near his home in Lynn, Massachusetts, according to a press release from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. He is scheduled to appear before a Department of Justice immigration judge and will remain in the ICE custody pending deportation. It is currently unknown when or how the Guatemalan national entered the U.S. before being inspected, admitted, or paroled. Okay, in June, the illegal immigrant was brought up on new charges in East Boston, and this is in June of 2023. Let's see, number plate obscured, not displayed, concealed ID, and forgery. Those charges were also dismissed. These DAs, people forget the power of the, whether it's the DAs, the local government, the federal government, all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to read the comment here. Junior Coltrane, I don't know who you are, man. I think he's trolling the comments. Anyway, so these DAs, Soros-funded DAs, are being brought into the states. The local governments are the ones that have a massive amount of authority. And these Soros-funded DAs are simply bringing in the illegals, kicking them out, and no bail, cashless bail. These are all horrific things. This is, yeah, the prison system may be overrun. The prison system may have, its shortfalls, but these are crimes that cannot be, we can't just leave this to go willy nilly. We can't be allowing these people to get out on bail, cashless bail. This is all horrific. Okay. So when we talk about that, I'm talking about people specifically on the left. That tends to be the norm. People on the left are pushing this. We've become, as Republicans and conservatives, we've more or less become the, I would say the party of law and order. At least that's what we tell ourselves. However, there's certain people that are, kind of breaking the mold, that left and right mold. And John Fetterman is one of those. So John Fetterman is a guy who, when I first saw him, I could not stand the guy. I was like, you know what? He's just another socialist. He wore his baggy pants and his hoodies, and I still don't like him. I still think he's a socialist. I still think that he is, he doesn't align with me politically in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But now he's starting to face backlash because he's not progressive enough. So he's come out and support some things that we Republicans are, and this is where we have to be careful, by the way. We jump on board and say, oh, John Fetterman, he's coming over to the right. Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean that there can't be places where we align. I'm going to quit reading the comments. Junior Coltrane, you're getting me off base here, buddy. So anyway, that doesn't mean that we can't have places where we actually agree. Now, my theory has been for a very long time that we don't need to be compromising to the left. We've compromised to the left for my entire life. And this bipartisan, it's always the language, bipartisan. We have to have bipartisan legislation, things that the Democrats and the Republicans agree on. Well, we've moved so far in opposite directions that when we actually have things that we agree on, it's always us, being the Republicans or the conservatives, compromising to the left. This is how we've gotten an out-of-control spending problem. This is how we've got massive, massive government programs that have started to rack up our debt, deficit spending, wars. When it comes to the social safety nets that we have, all of our entitlement programs, all these have come from us compromising to the left. And when we started at the far right, I would say to the far right as a actual constitutional representative republic, the only place to compromise was to the left. And so now it's moved so far to the left, and we've gone so far beyond the Constitution, so far beyond the intent of the Founding Fathers and our founding documents, that, we have to get to a point where our politics are now, first off, we have to gain it in the House and in the Senate, but where our politics are to the right, so that when compromises have to be made, it's the left compromising with us, not the other way around. The left absolutely has to compromise with us. So if they want to have that government program, if they want to have that spending plan, then they're going to have to show us, okay, hey, you want to pay for this? Yeah, fine. Then give me 2 programs that you're going to cut. Show me where you're going to get the money. And, that's where I get into the beef with spending on the wars, right? So when we talk about spending in Ukraine, we talk about spending in Israel, wherever we're putting that money. My beef with that is that, first off, we don't have any money. We are broke. We're spending $1.5 trillion more than we're making in any given year. And people just continue to spend. I was listening to Ben Shapiro the other day, and he was talking about the war in Ukraine. And he was saying, oh, yeah, it's great that we're paying other countries. We're giving money to other countries to fight our enemies. And yeah, okay, I could see a certain argument for that, but I can't see an argument for that when we don't have any money to give them. And his argument was that same loop that Lindsey Graham liked to argue, and I think that Mike Johnson may have made the same argument that, well, we're giving them the money, but that money's turning around and coming back into our military-industrial complex. Therefore, it's fueling our economy. And my argument is, okay, if we're going to give to foreign wars, then why in the world are we having to pay for it? Why are we printing the money, giving it to someone so they can turn around and pump our money back into our economy? If Israel wants to buy weapons from us, I don't have a problem with Lockheed selling them weapons, or with Raytheon selling them weapons, or General Dynamics, or whoever it happens to be. If we have somebody in Ukraine that wants to buy weapons from America, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But they have to buy it from us. We can't simply print our way out of these problems. We have got to get the spending under control. Deficit spending is absolutely destroying this country. And it's not just destroying the country for us. It's destroying the country. And my primary concern is the destruction of our country for future generations. That's the real problem. Yeah, we can kick this can down the road because Nancy Pelosi is going to be long gone whenever this spending crisis comes to a head. A lot of these politicians are going to be long gone. Lindsey Graham will be long gone. But at the end of the day, these kids are born, every child born in America right now is owing $100,000 to the federal government. That's $100,000 of their labor that is owed to the federal government for things that do not benefit them, for things that are benefiting people now. It's morally repugnant for us to continue to do that. It's absolutely morally repugnant. And I got off base here, but I'll go back to John Fetterman. His policies, his plans, most of the things that he agrees with are things that do not align with the conservative side of the political spectrum. But he has stood up for people like Israel. If you haven't seen the troll of John Fetterman, let me see if I can find the video. Yeah, here it is. I'll pull this one up for you guys. This was an absolutely epic troll by John Fetterman. Let me see if I can pull this up. Walking by some of the Palestinians or some of the Palestinian protesters. This was in D.C. So here's these people being arrested. Casually trolling them. So, hey, I thought it was hilarious. And I thought, hey, you know what? That's funny. Good job, John Fetterman. You know, guy's got a sense of humor. But at the end of the day, John Fetterman is still a socialist. That doesn't mean that John Fetterman has come over to our side of the aisle. But he's facing issues because he's compromising with us. And this is what we can expect. When I say that we're going to be compromising to the right, we need to have them compromising to the right. They're going to undergo the stresses and struggles that we've been undergoing for a long time as conservatives, trying to fight back to fiscal responsibility, try to fight back towards the Constitution. I just lost my article here. Let me pull it back up. Oh, here we go, doing this live. There it went. So Fetterman told NBC News, let me go back up here. So Democrat John Fetterman top aides have all resigned from their positions and are leaving his office for more progressive jobs, the Daily Mail reports. This comes as the senator has been distancing himself from the progressive wing of the Democrat Party and shifting more to the center on key issues. So he was elected in 2022 and received endorsements from prominent progressives in the Democrat Party, such as AOC, and Bernie Sanders has strayed from his former progressive stance on significant issues impacting the nation. Over the past several months, Fetterman has shown support for Israel in its war against Hamas and has called for stricter border security measures, which is a stance opposite to some of the progressives in Congress. The senator recently made it abundantly clear that he is not a progressive. Now, this is a side note, I guess I would say, but it's kind of fascinating how this guy, you know, when he first had the stroke, and I thought, you know what, this guy's never going to be able to, he's never going to be able to function in the Senate. They simply wanted a guy who could go in there and rubber stamp all the progressive votes. The fact that he is opposing them, the fact that he used them to get into office and now is making himself more of a centrist, you know, I don't know what his constituents think about that. But, it kind of tells me something about the guy, and I am impressed that now he's actually able to communicate. So he's speaking in full sentences, which I guess is an accomplishment for somebody in the Senate, at least these days. But earlier this month, Fetterman's longtime communications director, Joe Calvello, who assisted him during the campaign's turbulent Senate race, went to work for far-left progressive Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Well, there you go. That's a step up in life. But we're going to have this as we take this conservative movement forward, and as we start getting people elected, like the Matt Gaetz of the world, or I guess you could say like I don't know if how necessarily conservative, but the Lauren Boeberts and the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the people that are quite polarizing. As we get those more conservative people elected, we need more of them, obviously. But we're going to have people along the way who are going to line up with us in certain ways. But just because they line up with us, that doesn't mean that we need to start making too many compromises towards the left. Those compromises, as I say, have got to be towards the right. Yeah, you're right there, Junior. In 5 years, all today's political power players will have aged out of life. They are here. Everybody can see that one. Yeah, it's a valid point. They're all going to be out. They're all going to be aged out. These people are they're absolutely ancient. Absolutely ancient. Thanks for the comments, by the way, Junior. That's good stuff, man. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about, and I hate talking about this stuff, but such is life. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and skip to this next one. I'm gonna give you a positive story. Amongst all the negative, amongst all the doom and gloom and the financial problems and all that, I'm gonna give you something that actually, you know what? I lied. I'm not going to do that one. I'm not going to give you positive just yet. Let's go ahead and talk about Mike Johnson. Sorry, I'm going through my notes here, and I want to make sure I'm pulling up everything in the right order. So, Mike Johnson, we were talking about spending. He's committed to bringing Ukraine aid to the floor. Republicans say it could lead to his ousting. Now, if you all don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene has already put something on the floor to have him ousted. It's a motion to vacate the chair. And she's already indicated that she would do this. I don't think she's actually put it forward yet, but she's threatening to do it. So on Sunday, a Republican congressman claimed that House Speaker Mike Johnson is committed to bringing additional funding to Ukraine to the floor when the House reconvenes in D.C., and this is per the New York Post. So the decision would likely cause a ruckus within the House GOP and could potentially cost Johnson his speakership. Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska made the assertion during an appearance on NBC's Meet the Press while speaking about providing further aid to Ukraine in its war against Russia. Johnson's committed to making this the top priority when we return back to Washington, D.C., Bacon says. And goes on to say, I've spoken to Johnson directly. I'm not going to delve into the details of that conversation, but I'm confident that he's going to bring a bill to the floor. See, I called for this early on. When we got rid of McCarthy, people were jumping up and down. People were all amped up about whether or not we should be kicking the speaker out. A lot of people on Fox News were saying, oh, well, they're making us look like idiots. They're making us look like fools. And I said, no, we're absolutely not. This is holding somebody's feet to the fire. And we replaced it with somebody that we thought was going to be a staunch conservative, that we thought was going to come down on the right side of the issues that we could all, let's be honest, we could all agree on. But he absolutely has not. And so Mike Johnson has been, in my opinion, an utter disappointment. And I was calling for whether or not we should oust him a couple of months ago. But when we talk about Russia, as I was saying before, and if you're just getting onto the stream, my take on the Ukrainian spending and pumping money into this little corrupt country over in Europe is that, first off, we should not be doing it. If Ukraine is this powerful, wealthy country that all the Democrats would have us believe, then why are they not just purchasing the weapons that they need? I'm much more of an isolationist these days. I spent enough time in the military that I've realized most of the wars that we're getting into are, in fact, political wars. Most of the wars that we're getting into are not worth our while. Most of the wars that they want us to be involved in are not going to benefit the U.S. They will benefit the military-industrial complex. Go back and watch my video if you want to, talking about Eisenhower in '61, kind of dissecting his speech and comparing it to today. But he warned us, his last speech as President of the United States, he warned us of a military-industrial complex. He warned us of a technological and scientific elite that were going to be directing the course of our country in a manner that benefits them. And that is absolutely happening now. It's absolutely happening now. The military-industrial complex needs war. They had 20 years, over 20 years of war. And, I was one of those guys when I was on active duty, and I was absolutely certain that what I was fighting for was in retribution to 9/11. And early on, yeah, it probably was. But you start to realize that this whole nation building thing that they ultimately want us to be involved in, anytime we go in a place, it's going to involve nation building because that's where the military industrial complex continues to get money. The State Department continues to get a juicy budget. so that they can pump it into nation building. Because when a country is destroyed, of course, it's America's responsibility to rebuild it. It's no longer about going in and defeating your enemies and getting out. It's about going in, somewhat defeating your enemies, continuing to fight them or continuing to fight the insurgency that you've created, and then to sit by and build schools and dig wells and rebuild the infrastructure, all on our dime. This is lunacy. This is lunacy. This is a ridiculous policy, but it's the one that is driven by the military-industrial complex because there are trillions of dollars at stake. And I'm not interested in paying for it. And I think that most of the American people are on my side on that one. But here we are, Mike Johnson. He's committed. He's committed to the same old party line. This is the uniparty line. War, 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 war. I will never discount the need for war at times. Do I think that after 9/11 we should have gone to war? Yeah, absolutely. We did the right thing. We went to war. But how we conducted that war is a completely different story. Same thing after Pearl Harbor. There's a lot of people that argue we shouldn't have been involved even after that. There were arguments to be made for not getting involved in World War II. I don't buy into those personally. But yeah, after a massive attack like that, you absolutely have to commit something to the war effort. And we did with force. But when we talk about a little country, a little corrupt country over in Europe, bordering Russia, do I think that it really impacts our national security in the way that they tell us it does? No, I absolutely do not believe that. I don't believe it for a minute. And, I won't get too deep into the Israel argument, but when we talk about Israel, it's almost sacrosanct for people to say that we shouldn't be giving boatloads of support to Israel. Do I think that we should support our ally? Yes, absolutely, 110%. Some people say that there should be boots on the ground. I've heard this, and there's dark corners that are, spouting that kind of nonsense. No, I do not believe that we need to have boots on the ground inside of Israel. But it comes back to how we're getting that aid to them. We're printing money, giving it to them. They are turning around and using our money to buy stuff back, and all it's doing is inflating our currency. This is ridiculous. Israel is one of the wealthiest nations in the Middle East. Buy the weapons. Everybody rants and raves about how superior their military is to everything, to all the nations around them. I say it's not necessarily superior to all of them, but for a small country with whatever it is, 9 million people, I think it's 9 million with all the Palestinians, they are remarkably, remarkably powerful. So let them fight their war. And without getting into a topic that will undoubtedly send people into a tailspin, when we talk about how Israel is fighting the war, which is another thing that people love to criticize, these are people who have never been in war. These are people who have never fought a war, definitely have never been involved in one that was urban conflict. When you want to talk about urban conflict, now you're talking about something that is incredibly dicey. And when you look at the way Israel is fighting compared to past wars, whether it's the Vietnam War or the Korean War, World War II, whatever, their civilian death ratios as how in an urban environment like that are remarkably, remarkably low. It's actually unbelievable how low they are. So I say all this to say, Mike Johnson is proving, though we thought somebody here in the comments said MAGA Mike, even though we thought that he was MAGA Mike, he's turning out to be just another unipartian, which is a phrase I've coined. If you haven't seen my videos, he's another unipartian. So let's talk about a separate issue. I'm changing gears here a lot. Thank you for your patience with that one. So let's talk about a mother's revenge. And this is kind of a moral question, I guess, for you guys. And if you got thoughts on it, drop it down in the comments. But a Georgia mom was convicted of felony murder after a man was killed during a shootout involving suspect in a sexual assault of her 12-year-old girl. So a Georgia mother has been convicted of felony murder after confronting the man who sexually abused her young daughter. In March 2022, Danielle, which that's a really interesting way to spell it, Harris, 42, discovered a shocking video that depicted her then 12-year-old daughter performing sexual acts with a 22-year-old man identified as Antonio Harley. Upon making this discovery, Harris promptly reported the matter to the Cobb County Police, who assured her that detectives would investigate the situation. The police also advised Harris that she not seek revenge against the man. So they told her, they said, hey, don't go after the guy. Despite this caution, Harris, along with several associates armed with handguns, proceeded to confront Harley at his apartment. Who wouldn't do that, by the way? Who wouldn't do that for their child? If their child had been abused by some degenerate, I mean, any reasonable, I'll be honest, I would say any reasonable mother or father would go after that person. So after arriving at Harley's apartment near the intersection of Wesley Chapel Road and Snapfinger Road, boy, these interesting names, a confrontation ensued during which Harley attempted to retreat inside his home. As Harley went to shut the door, one of Harris's associates fired his gun, hitting Harley in the chest. Harley's brother, who was present in the apartment, returned fire, resulting in the fatal shooting of a 19-year-old individual accompanying Harris. So she brought people with her. She confronted this guy. The guy tried to get away. She shoots him. He gets hit in the chest. One of his buddies turns around and shoots somebody, and it kills a 19-year-old who was with her. Now, what's a 42-year-old doing with a 19-year-old with a gun? That's probably stupid. But I could see situations like that where, tempers would flare. And, I shouldn't, I guess probably shouldn't have said it the way I said it before, but I couldn't imagine the rage that this woman felt by seeing videos of her child being assaulted by this adult, by this degenerate adult. But come on, taking a 19-year-old with you. But this is also kind of an example of, I talked about Daniel Penny. There's people out here who realize that, and who don't, or I say realize, they don't feel as though the police forces in their areas, in their cities, and in their states are going to do anything. We see the criminals that I was talking about earlier who are getting released from prison, out on bond. They're simply cutting them loose. And if we're cutting people loose, criminals, if we see people who have been arrested 3, 4, 5 times getting out on bail, what is one to think? This I don't want to call it vigilantism, because that's just, I think this mother was just revenge or felt like it was retribution for somebody abusing her little girl. But when we talk about people stepping in to take the law into their own hands, that's not a good idea. I obviously don't condone that. It's not smart. But people feel as though they don't have any other choice, I believe. Crime has gotten far worse than they are letting on. They're telling us that crime rates are dropping and, shootings are dropping. Well, when you have places like California has always had ridiculous crime, they're just not arresting people. So they change the laws. They adapt the laws so that they don't have to arrest as many people. The numbers drop. The statistics drop. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Isn't that the way the saying goes? But this is how things are welling up. It's welling up inside of people. And they feel as though they have to take things in their... I don't know if that's necessarily what happened with this woman, but we just see it time and time and time and time again. No one feels safe. And at a time when, you'll see the police. I talked about a similar situation to this. The police are the people that we're supposed to turn to, that we're supposed to call, and we believe are going to step in and save us when we're in trouble. But a New York couple battling squatters who took over their $2 million dream home. An elderly couple in New York has yet to move into their $2 million dream home, retirement home, despite purchasing it over 4 months ago, as they deal with a squatter who refuses to vacate the property. So Susanna and Joseph Landa have been left with no choice but to take Brett Flores, who acted as a live-in caretaker for the now-deceased previous owner and claims to have a legal right to the property. This is that 30-day law that they have in New York. It's absolutely ridiculous that after 30 days, if you're living there, regardless of whether you're paying rent, you now have a stake in that property. And the landowners, the property owners, are the ones that have to take you to court. You have to go through a lengthy process. And in some cases, it's 12 to 18 months before those things are settled. So these squatters, these degenerates, these people that are they're thieves, obviously, are stealing these people's property. And the people that are having to defend themselves are the ones who were wronged. Again, criminals getting out, criminals getting laws that are friendly to them, that give them every advantage. And here this sweet little couple saved all their money, did the right things, were ready to retire, bought their dream home, and a $2 million home, by the way, in New York. If you saw the one, I don't have the file of it or the photo of it right now, but the house in Queens, in Flushing, Queens, is $1 million home, and it was small. It was a 1,200 square foot home, and the guy had moved in and just taken it. But it was still I'm guessing that's how large it was. So yeah, we got a good comment here. It says in Louisiana, I'm assuming that's in Louisiana, they're going to let, or I don't know if that's Louisiana or Los Angeles, they're going to let illegals work as police. So imagine getting pulled over by an illegal. Yep, there you go. So the police are the ones who are enforcing these laws. Now, the argument that I make is, same as when I was in the military, right? We are given orders and we have to follow those orders, but we are not bound to obey orders that are immoral, unethical, or illegal. And police officers, it's no different. The police chief can't give you an immoral, an unethical, or an illegal order. If so, you are not bound to follow that order. And the confiscation of property, it's probably a gray area. But I was thinking about it today, and I thought, man, how could you get cops, the good cops, the ones that won't abide by that? Let me rephrase. How do you weed out the ones that would abide by something like that? But nonetheless, these are immoral and unethical laws. And these are things that have to actually be fought inside the state of New York. So it's up to the people of New York. They're the ones that voted in the people that are making laws like this. So it is on them. But this is a clear violation of these people's constitutional rights. Oh, and I wasn't even showing the video or the photo. It's a clear constitutional violation of these people's rights to their property. And the police officers who were enforcing it, the same as the ones that I showed in my previous video, where they were arresting this woman. They were arresting the woman who was changing the locks on her house so that she could keep squatters out of her house. The police officers arresting her, those police officers are in the wrong. 100%, no questions asked. That is immoral. It's unethical. Might not be illegal, but it's immoral and it's unethical to kick a woman out of her home. Those police officers, it's the banality of evil, right? It's the old argument that, or not the old argument, but the analogy, how did Hitler get people to pull levers and kill people during the Holocaust? It was step by step, a little at a time, just a little at a time. Here, take this person, just go put him over here in this cell. Just take him from this cell and just take him over to the railroad car. Take him off the railroad car and get him over here behind the fence, a little bit at a time. And what did these police officers tell us? Police officers, Border Patrol agents, the same. The ones that are complicit in the human trafficking that's going on at the southern border. I mean, it's a little at a time. It's the same thing. It's a little at a time. They cave. It's the banality of evil. And they're doing it because their pension, their paycheck is far more important than these people's right to their property. The woman in Queens, more important than her right to her property, is a paycheck and a pension. And, I've always said this when I'm in Tennessee, right? That's where I live. And people say, oh, we don't have to worry about it around here. Really? Really? With the mass migration of people moving into Tennessee, Florida, Texas, all of these states are up for grabs. They're being flooded with people leaving these same hellscapes, these same terrible parts of the country. This is what we have to be aware of. Our rights can get taken like that. And it's slowly, then all of a sudden is kind of the phrase that people use. Okay. Well, hey, guys, this is, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off. Thank you all so much for watching. This is my first live stream. It was very rocky. It was very rough. But hey, you know what? It's been a good time. Thanks for the comments. Those of you that are making comments, it was really Junior. Hey, thanks for you left a bunch of comments, man. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Be sure to join me on my next one. We'll get the wheels greased a little bit better on the next one. But thank you all so much. Again, go to continuefreedom.com, sign up for my mailing list. You can check me out on X at Continue Freedom. You can find me everywhere at Continue Freedom. And we'll see you guys in the next video.